right, so I think we'll get started in a minute. Why don't I just say what Pearmill is, and in case you don't have context, and who we are. So I'm Nima Gardide. I'm the president at Pearmill. We are a performance marketing agency. We do paid search and paid social, from growth marketing to ad creative production to landing page optimization and attribution modeling. We primarily work with fast growing companies. Usually on average, our clients are spending in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. And our goal is to sort of work with a handful of clients at any given point. So we have a limit on how many clients to work with. The process that Nancy is about to walk you through has been something we've been working on for quite a while. The sort of thesis for starting Pearmill was that we think that agencies can think of their services as a product and create processes in a way that show repeatable success for any type of company that we work with or any industry that we're in. And the output of that thought process has been the sprint process, which Nancy's been a big part of designing with my co-founder Kareem and Mary, co-founders Kareem and Mary. And it's our main toolkit for helping companies decide on how to deploy their ad spend across multiple channels. And Nancy's role is a senior growth manager at Pearmill. I'll obviously let her explain what that means. But our goal sort of with this webinar, and the reason we decided to do it, is just to show folks how they can run a process and also hopefully get some feedback on it. We've been obviously implementing it with our clients for a while now, but a lot of internal teams that we work with now run a similar process, or we're walking into companies who have similar processes around trying to think through how to experiment and how to run their initiatives across the board and across the different channels that they're working on. And so by sharing it, we hope that we'll both be able to show you what we've done so far and what we've designed so far and what's been working for us, but also hopefully reflect learnings from the community that gets to watch this. And so, feel free to ask questions, feel free to poke holes in it as we go on, and we're going to sort of be as open as possible in answering them and trying to sort of seek to understand how we can make this better. So with that, I'll maybe hand it off to Nancy. Nancy, just take it away.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. As Nima mentioned, I'm Nancy. I'm the Senior Growth Manager here at Pearmill. So I work across strategy, planning, with our channel managers, and I work really closely with our creative team to roll out tests, as well as tests across landing pages, CRO, and working very closely with Nima and the team on tracking and attribution. There we go. So yeah, the main focus for today is for me to take you through the testing planning process that we use to ensure that our client accounts are constantly growing and learning. So in a space where priorities are shifting and channels like Meta or Facebook are ever changing, it's important to have a flexible approach to testing and moving things around when your business needs change. You may not walk away from this webinar with a carbon copy of our testing approach for your brand or your clients, but I hope that we can inspire the way that you approach running tests with your brand or your agency. I've just seen there's something in the chat. Thanks, Nima. Cool. So why do we have a sprint planning process? We know, especially as an agency partner, there can be a lot of pressure to get things moving and drive results fast. So it's important to remember to always trust the process and remind yourselves of why trusting the process is so important. We want our clients to succeed just as much as they do. And we know that testing and expanding on past learnings is the way to do this. Scaling is obviously vital for the growth of a brand. So we run tests that will allow us to be in a really good position to do so. Following a process allows us to continue to improve and tweak things where necessary as time goes on. So as Nima mentioned, this is a process that I've built along with other people in the team. But as time goes on, we always find little areas that need tweaking, and we work closely as well with our clients to refine the process. Platforms are often rolling out new things to test. So for us, planning on a monthly basis allows us to test new products and campaign types as they come to market. I'm personally a very process-driven individual, but I also don't think that there should be a strict process for everything. Testing, however, is one of those things that really does need a process so that learnings are documented correctly and used continually. So the sprint planning cycle for us. The process we use is made up of 3 key areas. So we have ideation and prioritization, aka coming up with what needs to be tested and when. Execution, aka getting it done. Learnings, aka making sure that we use what we learn for future testing, which I think is the most important point here. At Pearmill, we test things for the month ahead. Our internal sprint planning happens during the first full week of each month, and then the tests are mapped out for the remainder of that month. So we usually find that we either have a test from the previous month that runs into the next month, or we might have pre-planned the test for week 1 while we're planning. So during the first full week of the month, it's important that we take the time to look over the account health, the past learnings, and make sure that we're keeping up communication with our clients on what their business priorities are for that month. And as Nima previously mentioned, because we predominantly work with startups, the month-by-month planning process works really well for us. But if you're a larger business or a corporate, planning might need to happen on a quarterly basis, just because you might need to get approval from more than one stakeholder, for example, and we know how long that can take. When the tests are being executed, I like to keep my clients up to date with what's live and how things are going. So we discuss this on our weekly calls, and then we put anything that needs to be in writing so we can refer back to it in Slack. We share learnings once our tests have gained statistical significance and all the data's come in. So, for example, with channels like Google, we do tend to experience delayed conversion. So it's really important to make sure we've got every single bit of data before we analyse and say, okay, this is the winner, or this is the learning that we need to expand on next month. And then these learnings obviously can be used when sprint planning for the following month. Water break. Collaboration is key. It's also important to get fresh eyes on the account, which is why we discuss our testing ideas with everyone in the team, not just those that are on the account. It's also important for us as an agency partner to know when to push back on client priorities. So something that might seem vital to a client may have little to no lift when it comes to driving learnings or getting us in a good position to scale or improving performance. So it's very important to ensure that everyone on the account, including the client for us or the agency partner, is educated on what we plan to test, why we class it as a priority, and why it's slotted in for that week of the month, for example. We almost always run a creative test on paid social once a month or more if budget allows. This is because we know that creative is the biggest lever that we can pull on social media, especially because we're using broad targeting. This is favoured by channels like Meta, for example. So we want to ensure that we're continually resonating with our audience, and we know that the only way really to nail this is through the creatives that they're seeing on social. Sprints are divided up based on how long a test will need to run to gain statistical significance. So you usually want to drive at least 7 to 10 conversions per variant in order to see which one's the winner. You can obviously speed up the testing process if needed by spending more on the test or and then running it for a shorter period. The only thing I will say with trying to speed up the process is you don't want to be spending loads of money on a test and then not as much on your evergreen activity, because this is going to skew your overall results. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend drive. I think we normally try and stick to 20%, 20 to 30% of our evergreen budget is dedicated to testing, just so that we're not throwing the machine off. But yeah, for some clients, driving conversions comes at a higher cost. So the test might need to run for more like 2 weeks rather than 1, just to ensure that we're not eating through the budget and giving the platform a new larger budget to try and get through in such a short period. Structure is very important for the team and our clients. We ensure that the testing breakdown for the month is sent in writing. This is via Slack for us, and pinned to the channel for the month. This is mainly so that I don't lose it, but it's also very useful for our clients to refer back to. And then if anything in the sprint changes, we can update that message and just make sure everyone is aligned on what's running and when. As a senior growth manager, I have a pretty good handle on what my clients' business goals are, and therefore I feel very confident prioritising tests that align with these. But if I'm in doubt, I will always ask my clients if anything's changed or any priorities have shifted, if there's anything specific we need to focus on, like a promotion or a new product launch, for example. Something to mention as well is that it's okay to go back on a test that you've come up with. This is something that I learned only a few months ago. I almost felt embarrassed to say to my client that actually a test that I'd said is going to have drive really good results or learnings wasn't actually going to do that much in terms of getting us in a good position to scale or boost performance. So I think it's important to remember from our side, an agency, that clients and stakeholders, if you're working in-house, appreciate the honesty. So don't be afraid to go back on an idea that you once thought was amazing. Learnings, the most important part of the process. I often feel that this gets overlooked, just from previous experience, where you come up with a really good testing idea, you run it, it happens, you drive great results, and then you kind of just forget about it. So yeah, the key thing here is to use your data and insights to draw conclusions and then use it for future testing, or use them for future testing. So for example, consider that because a test didn't work during April doesn't mean to say that it won't work in December. Seasonality can obviously play a huge role in test learnings, and we find that especially for e-commerce clients, where CPMs might go to crap in Q4, or for well-being clients, for example, when January hits. This doesn't mean that you should keep rerunning tests, but always consider seasonality when you're planning your tests for the month. Our learnings and conclusions are kept in ClickUp, similar to Asana, that kind of project management program tool, so that we can always refer back to what we've learned and use them for future testing, or to run through with clients on our weekly calls once the tests have ended. So, how can you make sure the things that you're testing run smoothly and everything is documented correctly? Keep everything in one place. No one wants to see a set of learnings in a random Google Doc called learnings, some data in ClickUp, and then conclusions written in someone's notepad. Ensure the process is being used by every single member of the team, so that nothing is left floating around in a random Google Drive. And you don't always have to build on past learnings. Sometimes a test might flop, and that's a learning in itself. You know, this test didn't work for this client, and therefore we're going to move on and run things that we know are going to drive performance or get us in a good position to scale. Some testing examples are creative testing, our favorite one. I'd recommend running these on paid social at least once a month. Another example is ensuring you're optimizing towards the right events in platform. So prioritizing a down funnel event that's going to feed the platform more insight than a top of funnel event. Testing new channels, of course, is something else to consider, especially where you can use cross-channel learnings to get started. So if you've got some really good performing assets or audiences that you know could work on another channel. That's a very easy way to start testing new channels. Sometimes if performance needs to stabilize or you're in a period of scaling an account, testing can do more harm than good to performance and results can be skewed. So I think it's important to know when to leave accounts alone. I just ensure that my clients are aware of why no tests are running, and I have some testing ideas ready to go if we're in a position where we can start testing again. But yeah, I think it's really important. Although we're saying testing is really important and vital for an account, it's also very important to know when to leave things alone. We're already at Q&A, but to summarize, plan, stick to your processes, and use your learnings. Nima, over to you.
Yeah, we didn't actually have any questions, so that's pretty good. The one thing I was, can you go back to the last slide? I was curious about the keeping things going. How do we make that type of decision?
Keeping things going. Where
Yeah,
is that?
you were mentioning that sometimes we'll keep the test running, and wait for more data to come in. How can you give us some examples of how we would make that decision?
Yeah, so we tend to stick to the 7 to 10 rule for conversion. So, for example, if we're testing creatives, we want each asset to drive at least 7 to 10 conversions before we decide on which one is the winner. So if we're struggling to get that number of conversions, we might keep a test running for longer. We might also see if there are signs of delayed conversions. So if all of your other metrics like CPM, cost per click, click-through rate, all the more upper funnel metrics are in a stable position, but the conversions aren't, you might even want to pause the test, but make sure you wait for those conversions to come in. We do find that happens quite a lot on Meta and Google.
Yeah, no, so depending on the type of product that people have, I think that we work across both consumer and B2B, and sometimes the delayed conversions come in weeks or months later. For those types of clients where the delays are very long, how do we start running tests within this 1 month time frame where we can still improve the results over time?
You might want to focus on a more upper funnel metric for clients like that. I've worked with clients obviously that have it can take like up to a month for the actual conversion, like a sign up to a program, for example, to come in. So we might want to focus on the upper funnel metrics that we know will correlate with the lower funnel metrics that are likely to come in a month later.
Yeah, and I think this is like one of the things we probably always talk a lot about is using the events that are highly predictive of the later funnel stage events, to try to measure success, but also feed that information into the ad networks, because they get better and better at optimizing towards them. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for doing this. We're going to send this recording to everyone, and feel free to email us and ask more questions throughout the next couple of weeks. Will be available. And thanks for showing up after a 2-week hiatus on actually getting this done. So I appreciate everyone for coming on. And Nancy, thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Nima. Bye.
Awesome. Bye-bye.